think I'm live. Well, hello and welcome. Um, this live stream is going to be really about licks and how we can get the most out of our jazz licks. And if you are with me here live, please do let me know if there are any technical issues. So for instance, if you cannot hear me, please do let me know. Okay, I'd really appreciate that. Right, so I think a good place to actually start this conversation is by actually talking about what a lick actually is. Okay, so to me, a lick is simply a short musical phrase from the jazz language. So sometimes we get these phrases that we like that have been played often by the great jazz musicians, and we love these, and we learn them so that we can incorporate them into our solos. You know, jazz is a bit like learning a language. So sometimes there's just phrases that are appropriate for certain moments. So if you see someone in the morning, you would say good morning. You know, you probably don't need to reinvent a word for that context. And sometimes there's just phrases that are just commonly used in the English language. And likewise, in jazz, we've also got these phrases. A lot of them are used by the jazz greats. Actually, it'll be interesting when you pick or when you listen to one artist for an extended period of time, you'll notice that there are some phrases that they use quite often and in particular contexts. So one of the easiest places, particularly for a beginner to start learning licks from, is in 2-5-1 progressions. Okay, so what I mean by 2-5-1 is, suppose I'm in the key of C, right? My C major scale is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got those 7 notes. But if I'm thinking of my chords, I've got chord 1, chord 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So when I'm playing a 2-5-1 progression, I'm basically saying I'm going to play the second chord followed by the 5th chord in that key and then back to the first. Now this is a very common progression. We come across this in dozens of jazz standards, so it's one for you to know quite well. Okay, so I was listening not too long ago. In fact, this record here, I've probably been listening to for maybe more than 10 years. It's one of my favorite, and it's something by Barry Harris actually, and that album is called Live at the Jazz Workshop. And in that album, he plays a song called Morning Coffee. Okay, so I actually would like to play something from that album, from that particular track, and I want to extract a lick because this Morning Coffee is a 12-bar blues. So again, maybe just to explain a little bit more, so it's a 12-bar blues in the key of F. So it's going to play the F itself, so chord 1. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. When he gets to this part, that's a 2-5-1 progression. 2, then 5, then 1. Okay, so what I'm going to play is something that I'm extracting from that portion of the 12-bar blues. Okay, so when he plays the 2-5-1. So I'm going to play it. I'm actually going to play it from my phone because I don't know a smarter way to do this. So I'm just going to play from my phone. Hopefully you'll be able to hear the beginning of the solo, and then I'm going to tell you where that lick is that I'm going to use. Right, so let's have a listen. This song starts at about, he plays the head first, right? And then at about 38 seconds, his solo starts. So I'm going to play. Here it comes. Okay, so that little thing there that he plays, he said, that's the lick that I want. Okay, so let me just rewind that a little bit for you so that you can really hear the context one more time. I'm a strong believer in listening. So if we're saying jazz is a language, we have to listen to the great jazz players play, and that's where we learn from. Okay, so check this out. So measure 1. Oh wait, it's coming. Here it comes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here, 9. Okay, so it's basically in measure 9 of that 12-bar blues. Okay, so I'm going to show you what it is. So he's in the key of F, right? What I'm going to do, interesting enough, and for those that know me, surprise, surprise, is I'm actually going to transpose this lick. So I'll show you in the key of F, and then we're going to transpose it. So he's playing. By the way, I've written this down as well, so which I'll show you just now. So don't worry about it too much. Okay, I'm going to take this to the key of C, just because it's easier to see. But basically, he's playing this over 2-5-1 in the key of F, right? So on the G minor 7, he plays. I'll play that one more time. 2, 3, 4, and. Okay, so now I'm going to transpose this to the key of C. Okay, and I'm also going to show you what that looks like. Okay, so one little note as well regarding licks is I like to learn the original lick, and how do I do this is by actually copying it from the recording. So this one I already learned. In fact, I learned it a few years ago, probably in the year 2017 or something like that. That's when I actually transcribed this entire solo. So I listened to it a lot, I sang it, I found the notes on my keyboard, I wrote it down. So I really spent quite a significant amount of time just transcribing this, and it's a process that I highly recommend. And if it's probably a whole different video and maybe something for another day. I mean, if you're quite keen on learning how to transcribe or my transcription process, please let me know in the comments. Okay, even if you're not watching it live, I will see it whenever it comes. Maybe we might do a session on transcription, and we might transcribe a certain portion of some solo. So transcribing has got multiple benefits. So not only are you learning and extracting language from the jazz greats, it's not just language, but there's actually multiple lessons that could be learned. And I can't really think of a better way to really train your ear than transcribing. Okay, because this is where you really get jazz language. There's one thing though that I omitted to mention. So this whole thing that we're doing today, right, which is looking at licks and looking at how we can get the most out of a lick, this is really to aid our improvisation, or to enhance our improvisation skills. I do want to mention that in order to improvise, there are some things that I think are actually quite important to do. I created this thing that I call the jazz piano pyramid, just to help musicians understand the journey. So right at the top of that pyramid is solo jazz piano, and this for me is where you're playing multiple things. So you're playing the melody often in your right hand, but you're also accompanying yourself. So you're playing chords, you're also playing things in your left hand. You know, you could be striding maybe while the right hand is playing. So I'm playing the melody, but I'm also playing the chords. but I'm also adding a little bit of improvisation because I'm embellishing that melody. So I'm trying to do all sorts of interesting things, but simultaneously. That is what I consider the top of the pyramid, and also generally quite difficult, So before you do that, you want to walk before you run, So before you try and tackle solo jazz piano, because a lot of students come to me and they actually want to do that, how can I do a walking bass, but then actually you realize that they don't really know their chords. They don't even really know how to play in time. So there's some things that really have to be in place in order for you to play solo jazz piano successfully. Right, so just a few steps below solo jazz piano is jazz piano improvisation. So this here is the thing that we are mostly dealing with today. And in order to do this, I believe you've got to be fit enough to do this. You've got to be well equipped to improvise. And there's some tools that are extremely important, without which you might find yourself confused. You might find it difficult to transfer the information that you learn from one song to another. And at the end of the day, you might just have a whole bunch of information, but you can't really make the connections. So in order for you to play jazz piano, and in fact, not just jazz piano, but to improvise successfully, there's some fundamentals that you need. And we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but I've got some courses that I created to help students, particularly to gain these skills. So the jazz piano fundamentals is at the bottom there, where I believe you absolutely must learn things like scales, things like intervals, things like chords, particularly the jazz chords, the jazz chord progressions. So you must know that this is a 2-5-1. In fact, no, that's not a 2-5-1. That's a turnaround. You must know that that's a turnaround. You must know that this is a 2-5-1. And you must be able to do these things in multiple keys. So if I go to the key of D and say turn around, you should be able to do that. Or if you're playing a 2-5-1 in the key of E flat. The Jazz Piano Lab is where we really work on these things so that they become second nature. And you want to drill these concepts until they appear in your playing without you having to really think too much about them. So basically, if I woke you up at 3 a.m. and said to you, in the key of F sharp, play me a 2-5-1, you should immediately just do that. But not just like that. You should probably be able to do it using inversions. So that's what we cover in the Jazz Piano Lab. And some people I know, they like these advanced voicings and rhythm and comping. Those are all things for the Jazz Piano Lab. Once you've got your fundamentals and you've drilled them through the lab, you're ready for piano improvisation. So today we're really dealing with layer number 3 of this jazz piano pyramid. Okay, but I will emphasize again, if you want to do this well, if you want to improvise well, then you need to ensure that your fundamentals are in place. You don't want to skip things, because often the gaps will become very noticeable, at some point, usually sooner than later. So I really encourage you to, if not with my courses, at least just work on your scales, work on your chords, work on chord progressions, work on tunes as well. So that's the other thing that we cover in those, in layer number 1 and layer number 2. And understand how those tunes are actually put together, And then when we talk about improvisation, you've actually got something to improvise over. So back to our lick. So I said we want to make sure we learn it from the original recording, just like what I did. But I've written this one down for us, this Barry Harris one. And I mean, this is what it looks like. Right. So I'll play it. Remember, the original one was in the key of F. This is now in the key of C. And the chords are D minor 7 and G7 and C major 7. So D minor 7, G7. I'm just using inversions here. And C major 7. Again, inversions, which we cover in the fundamentals course, right? So let's analyze the lick so that we can actually make the most of it. So there are multiple ways of seeing this, and I am not going to be too like I'm not going to be one-sided. I'm going to have multiple views on how you can see this. So I'll tell you how I see it. It's actually interesting because I think I see it in multiple ways. So the F for me, I guess the first thing I'm seeing here is a bebop scale. So if I think of a G scale, a G7 scale, sorry, so right, some people refer to that as G mixolydian. That's fine, you know, or you can call it the G7 scale. If I play it all the way to G, that's also fine. Okay, so it's basically all the white keys from G to G. Now the bebop scale has got an additional half step. So if I play it descending, right, from G, between the root and the seventh, I have to add an additional half step. So I'm going to add the F sharp. So if I play, that's what's referred to by most music as the bebop scale. So this is the G7 bebop scale. I just think of it as a G with one half step. Okay, so the first way you can see this little lick here is, well, I'm starting on the 7th degree of G7 because there's my G, right? So this is the 7th of G, and I'm simply going up my scale and then down. Okay, so you're basically moving up from the 7th degree of the scale and then moving down. Okay, what does this little piece of information help me? Well, I can transfer this information to any other key. In fact, the reason I could bring this to C is because when I was playing the song in the key of F earlier, right, I was thinking of a C7 scale. So that's the 7th of C. If I go up the bebop scale and then come down, that's what I've got. But anyway, back to key of C. Right, so we're saying from the 7th degree, just go up and down. You go to the 2nd degree of G, you go to the 6th degree of G, and then come to the 5th. So right, and then we go 2nd degree again of G. Those two notes I actually consider as, I think their purpose here is to simply surround the note B. So the A is just below the B, the C is just above the B, and then you come to B. Okay, so that's a bit of enclosure or surrounding the B. Okay, and a common technique, particularly from the earlier players or the bebop players, is on a dominant 7 chord, if they go to the 3rd degree, they like to go up the diminished chord. So there's a diminished chord that comes from the 3rd degree of a dominant 7 chord. Okay, so here's the lick. Bebop scale going up and down, 2nd degree of G, 6th degree, and I surround the B. I play a diminished chord and then come down the scale. I'm going to skip E because I want to approach that E chromatically. So I'm going to use some chromatic approach notes. Okay, so instead of going straight to E, I approached it using 2 chromatic notes. So. If I add a little bit of left hand, I'm going to play that again. Okay, so before I try and get more out of the lick, well, first of all, I have to know the lick. Okay, so how do you know it? Try and break it down into a way that you can understand. I told you earlier I've got multiple ways of seeing this, so I guess I primarily see it from the G7 scale or from the dominant 7 scale. The other way to see it is like I'm playing D minor 7, right? So you could consider your first note the third degree of your chord, of your 2 chord. So from there you can just go chromatic up and then you come back there. That's another way to think of your of your line or for your lick, right? Just start on the third degree of the chord, chromatic up and down. And then this A is also a chord tone, so that belongs to that D minor chord. Right, so you're playing, and then you want to play the D, but then you approach it from just a step above. So the basic lesson is how you see it is probably not the most important thing. The most important thing is, can you see it, and can you then transfer that information to any other key? So whether you call it this the G7 scale or the G Mixolydian scale, the G bebop, or whether you're thinking of the Dorian, that's fine. As long as you can play it and transfer it to other keys, that's the most important thing. So and if I really want to internalize that lick, I am going to play it over and over and over. Okay, at least first in that main key, right? So now let's talk about how we can get even more from this. Okay, so learning it is one thing, but now that we've got it, what can we do with this? Okay, so I'm going to give you a few tricks and a few tools that you could use to actually be able to use this in real life. So the first thing that you can do is, well, after you've learned it, right? Remember to learn it, remember to know it until you don't have to think about it, right? So we're going to add 1/2 step below the lick. And these little steps that I'm giving you, you can use basically for any lick. Okay, so these can be applied to any lick. So today is not about this particular Barry Harris lick. This is about licks in general. And now you can use these techniques to apply on any lick. Okay, so I've written it here just so that you can see. So the writing is for my visual learners, but you don't have to be able to read music to play these things. The most important thing is to know the concept and then be able to apply it. Actually, often reading can actually be more of a hindrance than than a real help. So that additional note that I'm about to add, right? Oh, yeah, additional note that I'm adding. I'm actually going to play that on at the very end of the previous bar or the previous measure. So in other words, I have to count and say 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So on the and of beat 4 is where I would add my additional 1/2 step. So I now have to think 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me do that again. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2. Okay, I'm actually going to get rid of that for a second so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Right, so I'm starting on the and of beat 4, right? So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Little lesson for a number of people, hopefully. Do not be afraid to make mistakes, you know. when you're practicing, that is the time to make mistakes. I mean, when else should you make mistakes? So we want to make mistakes and then learn from them and then fix them. Sometimes the mistakes actually end up sounding actually better than the original thing. Okay, so one thing that one skill really that we want to develop is to really understand the beat. So if this is beat 1 and that's 2 and that's 3 and that's 4, as jazz musicians we're constantly counting. Okay, first at a very conscious level, so we're thinking 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. Okay, so we want to be able to play notes on the beat 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, but we also want to be able to play notes on the end of the beat. So like I go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so sometimes when we play our phrases, we might start in different parts of the beat. So we also want to be able to hear 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The most boring thing is to always start every phrase on beat 1. Sometimes we want to start on the end of 1. Okay, in this case we're starting on the end of 4. So we're going 1 2 3 4. 1 2 3 4. Okay, so what are we doing there? We are adding 1/2 step below our lick. Okay, and remember, you can apply this to any lick. Okay, so that's the first little trick that I want to share with you. Add 1/2 step below your lick. And the second tip that I want to give you is you could always add 2 half steps. Okay, so if you think about it, when we added 1/2 step below, we said we're now starting on the end of beat 4. That means if we add 2 half steps below, we're now starting on beat 4, right, of the previous bar. So we're thinking, well, our lick comes after this. So we're thinking 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3. And if I'm thinking of my 2 half steps, well, my lick is starting here, right? So 2 half steps would be E flat and E. So I'm now thinking 1 2 3 4 and 1 2 3 4 and. I hope you can hear that that lick. The more I'm experimenting, is turning out to be something else altogether. So what have I done so far? I added 1/2 step below, and then I added 2 half steps below. Okay, and remember, we can do this to any lick, right? So let's go to the next idea. In fact, here's a written example for my visual learners. Okay, so before the D minor 7, we added the note. In fact, that D should have been D flat. Okay, so my mistake there. That's absolutely fine. Right. Okay, let's go to another tip. So the other thing we could do to our lick to get the most out of it is to add these things known as enclosures. Now, when you enclose a note, you are basically surrounding the note. So if I take a note like C, C is surrounded by D and B. So instead of playing C, I could always play B, D, and then C. Actually, it's interesting. When you listen to that Barry Harris solo, he starts by surrounding a note in that solo. It's an F that he actually surrounds. So this is surrounding the F. by playing the note below, the note above, and then, oh, in fact, I've even heard some people call this the, what do they call it? Under over, or over under. Okay, so you can call it whatever you want, right? As the bottom line is you're enclosing the note, you're surrounding it. Okay, so I could surround C, I could surround D, or I could surround E, I could surround F. Okay. Here I'm surrounding using just the notes in the scale, so I'm just using white keys, but sometimes you could surround by using non-scale tones. So for instance, I could play C sharp, then B, then C. You know, you also get some very interesting sounds. I could surround D by playing, I could even go or. These are all different ways of surrounding. Okay, if you want, you can actually turn that into an exercise and just practice surrounding the scale tones. But back to our lick, right? Our lick is starting on an F. So what if I surround this F? What if I go? So what did I do there? I play the note below and then the note above, and then I started playing my lick. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me try and surround with the F sharp this time. I like both of them. So both could work. So you could always surround. I'm wondering what would happen if I surround, let's say something like a D, and then added maybe my 2 half steps, and then started playing my lick. So now I'm sort of combining step 2, 3, and 4, you know. So I'm going. One, two. In fact, what did I do? Let's see. So now I've got, you see, sometimes you do have to think about this. So if you're going to add 2 half steps, but you're also going to surround. So there's the 2 notes just, okay, so there's the 2 notes I'm surrounding. So maybe on the end of 2. So if I go 1, 2, 3, so in fact 1 and 2, 1 and surround from here, 1 and 2 and 1. No, that doesn't work. Let's see. Oh yes. I could even go 1, 2, 3. See there, I tried to squeeze it in there. You know, I could have gone 1, 2. No. 1. So for it to work, I had to add that extra, that triplet. 1 and triplet. Okay, so you can start getting interesting things there. What would happen if I start even earlier than that? 1, 2, 3. No, 1. It turned out to be something else altogether there, all right? So feel free to try different rhythms as long as you are adding some enclosure wherever you want. Okay, this here was just an experiment to see what would happen if I enclose the D. I could have enclosed the E. I surrounded the C. What a... Okay, so you could try all sorts of things and see what could happen there. All right, so now we've added 1 half step below, we've added 2 half steps below, we've enclosed. Let's see what else we could do. In fact, for my readers, there is an example of the use of enclosure. Okay, so same lick, I've just added some enclosure. All right, another thing I could do is I could just remove one note. Now, life is about to get interesting here. So if I remove the first note, for instance, my lick is now 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so that becomes its own thing as well. So basically we are manipulating this lick, you know, sometimes adding things to it, sometimes removing things from it. And this is a really nice way to really explore it and to make it our own, you know, because we don't just want to be playing it as it is all the time. Actually, we just want to learn from the lick, you know, because the things that we're doing here, we could be doing to even our own lines. You know, you can play a short phrase and then start adding notes to it or start removing notes to it. That's a nice way to really get into improvisation. Okay. What if you remove 2 notes? You can also come up with something interesting. So I've removed the F and the F sharp. So that means I'm now starting on beat 2. So what if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. One, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. All right. So that's a cool thing to try and do. Another thing we could do is we could keep that rhythm, but then change the notes. So what's our original lick? Ta ta ti 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 ta pa pi tu ta ta pi ti 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 ta. What if I play any note of my choice, or any notes of my choice, using that rhythm? Okay, so I already know that part of what I'm doing is I'm using a bebop scale. Let me see. What if I go... Sorry, let me do that again. I wasn't thinking about the rhythm there. Let me try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm going to try something else. And... Right, I'm not even sure I'm doing that last one correct. But I hope you get the idea, right? Let me try a different one. Ooh. 1, 2, 3. Right, so you could keep that rhythm, and then now who knows what you could come up with. So different notes, but you're just thinking of rhythm. Right, this one has actually quite a fairly straightforward rhythm. Mostly, in fact, not mostly, all 8th notes. You know, when you start getting maybe into some Charlie Parker licks, you might come across triplets or 16th notes. So you can get some very interesting things from just playing the rhythm, but changing the notes. All right. Another thing we could do is we could actually add some notes to the end of that phrase. Right. So here I actually have not written anything, but I'm sure now we know the lick. So I'm just going to try a few ideas. So let's just do it like this. So our lick is... Okay, probably can't even... I don't remember what I did there, but all I know is I added notes to that lick. Okay, let me try and do it a different way. I'll probably try and keep it simpler this time. Sorry. Okay, so you could add whatever you want. You could add one note, you could add two, you could add 25. You know, as long as you are adding something, you are changing the lick a little bit. You know, so I'm trying to keep it simple, something like a pentatonic or something bluesy or whatever. Okay, but that's one way of really internalizing that lick, but also changing it. So you can simply change it by adding some notes to the end of that phrase. And here is probably what's my favorite thing to do with my licks, is to actually use them in multiple songs. So we say this lick is being played over a 2-5-1, so that's good information. So I would then look for songs that use lots of 2-5-1s, and some songs that came to mind, and I just wrote them down here, songs like All the Things You Are, that's got lots of 2-5-1, Ornithology, and actually Ornithology is the same chord changes as what's that song? I've actually gone blank on the name of that song. Okay, it's gone. So Ornithology or Donnelly, which is the same as, oh, in fact, it's How High the Moon. How High the Moon is the name I was thinking of. Same chords as Ornithology. Donnelly, same chords as Way Back Home in Indiana. And then our favorite Autumn Leaves, lots of 2-5-1s, and you could add to this list, okay? But I basically like to take my lick and now apply it to different songs. So suppose I did this on All the Things You Are, all right? So maybe just think of that. So those are the chord changes, right? Now I'm going to try and throw in that lick wherever I see, well, I say see, but I'm really, wherever I know there's a 2-5-1, that's what I'm going to do, right? So I'm going 2, 3, 2, 3, and I'm really just trying to play around and slot it in wherever possible. And I hope you've heard that sometimes it's actually not possible, but then I have to go with the flow. Sometimes I'll shorten the lick, and there were times where I was adding notes to the lick. So you're basically just playing around with it, you know. If I take Ornithology, so there's lots of 2-5-1s in this, right? So if I'm thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and I hope you can see that I added notes to it. So I played something like, that's the melody, right? And then I said, so those 3 notes I added before. Now I've added notes after the lick. There it is again. I added some notes. Okay, so that is ornithology. I could have been playing, what did I say? Donna Lee. I just played part of it there. So, oh my goodness, I cannot talk and play the same, but I hope you get the idea. So, I saw there was a 2-5-1 here, but it was a fast one. But I managed to squeeze in my, and then turned it into something. Then I change. There's just a little bit of it. Okay, so you can throw it in wherever you want. Here's autumn leaves, and I'm just gonna throw it in there. So there's the sound of autumn leaves, right? Here it comes. Okay, so even in autumn leaves, you could throw that in. Remember, at the end of the day, we actually got this from a 12-bar blues. So basically, we can play these things or a lick on multiple tunes. Okay, and I think when you do that, that's when you really start getting the maximum benefit from it. Another thing I like to do with my licks is I'll say, okay, I'm going to play a certain number of bars, just playing my own ideas. Okay, so my own improvisation, and then I'll play licks for the other bars. In fact, I was kind of doing that in the examples that I was playing just now. A good place to find these songs that have got 2-5-1s is actually some bebop tunes. So those have plenty of 2-5-1s. So you've got lots of room to experiment there. So if I took, let's see, let me try a different one. So maybe Confirmation. And I probably also just need to state that I'm going from song to song to song to song. And I know some people might not necessarily know all the songs, and I'm not expecting you to. But hopefully the message is loud and clear that A, you must know songs. B, you must know chord progressions, because then how else will you know when to slot in these licks, right? And just harmonic formula in general, so that you know how a song is put together. I probably just glossed over the fact, or maybe we all did, that I was saying ornithology is How High the Moon and Donna Lee is Indiana. Some people learn them as completely different songs, but when you look at the harmonic formula, you realize that, hang on, these songs are the same songs. Sometimes it's just in a different key. All right, so that's important to learn. I was saying confirmation, right? Here's a section. I hope you heard it even there. It was quick. So I took the first part of it and then changed, So even when you've got a quick 2/5, you can always throw that lick in there, And I'm not always successful, but the idea is to actually try. I think that's the big message that I actually want to leave you with, is try ideas out. When you're practicing, for me, even when playing, otherwise these things become quite stale and boring. So take risks, be adventurous, and if something doesn't work, then try and figure out, okay, how can I get myself out of this situation? And then if, again, you know your fundamentals, so you know how the tune actually works and you know exactly where you are in the song, you will be able to find your way out of it. Okay, the problem is when you don't have a solid foundation. All right, so let's see. You know what? Me and my poor multitasking, I have not even looked at my chat even once to see whether I'm on. Okay, and I see that there's some technical issues. All right. Not entirely sure what to do about this, but let's see. All right. I'm nearly at the end. And again, talking about taking risks, that's a lesson that I'll learn from it, and then see how I can make sure that there's no lag the next time. All right. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, we're talking about how you can play some of your own improvisation and then add the lick, or incorporate the lick into your solo. So that's something you could always try out. So I really hope that these little ideas on licks help you. And what I probably want to share with you now is maybe just my final thoughts on the whole matter. So I would say take all these ideas and apply them to various licks, but then I'll also close by saying, please ensure that you are fit and ready to actually improvise. So you want to make sure that you've got your fundamentals right. You want to make sure that you know songs so that you can then apply the licks to the songs. You don't just want to learn a lick. Sometimes we do say, okay, play it in all 12 keys, but I think it's even better and more effective if you just play it in different songs, and then you can actually make more practical use of it. Okay, so learn your fundamentals, learn your songs, and then you will be ready to start applying these ideas. Okay, I should have probably mentioned at the beginning, but I mean, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please click that subscribe. Okay, that will help me to continue making things like this, and hopefully you continue finding these things valuable. If you have got any topics that you'd like me to cover in the future, particularly for improvisation, and I've intentionally chosen improvisation because I actually haven't created a product for improvisation. I've got my jazz piano fundamentals in the Jazz Piano Lab, and I'm about to start creating my third layer, which is jazz improvisation. So if you've got any pressing topics or any topics that come to mind with regards to improvisation, please do let me know. I know transcribing will be one of them, and using licks will be another. I'll probably do another thing similar to this, either live or as a video, and then hopefully that helps you with your playing overall. Okay, so guys, I hope you've enjoyed this and you can take something away from it. Hopefully you've been at your instrument, hopefully you've taken notes and you'll re-watch and everything. But I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you in the future in the next video. All right, farewell.